Hey guys, I'm Rob, and this is Normal Days Off. Stop that. You're just going behind me. You gotta stop doing that. Because it literally like pulls me out of it every time. Where was I? I don't even remember anymore. Today, we're making fresh pasta with sausage and pepper sauce. Onions, garlic, basil, Parmesan. What else is in there? Tomatoes. We got it all. It's all in there. Fresh pasta with sausage and pepper sauce. Essentially, I'm just gonna show you how to make fresh pasta. It's not nearly as hard as it sounds. And it's one of those things you can actually even make it the day before, and you can just store it in the fridge, and you can just bang it out whenever you really want. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make the pasta dough. Now, it's super easy. The only couple things that you need for it is a bowl and a few ingredients. So the first thing you need is 00 flour. So 00 just means it's ground really fine, and I add a little bit of semolina to it. So this is gonna be for like four or five people or something like that. So I put 450 grams of 00 flour and 50 grams of semolina. Semolina I find is always key, especially when you're making it at home. It's a little different in restaurants, but if you're doing it at home, you add a little bit of semolina and it gives the pasta this like natural bite, and it kind of adds a bit of flavor as well. It's always easier if you put it in a bowl. If you want, you can put all of the flour on the actual board and you make a little well with it. But I find that this just keeps everything a little bit cleaner anyway if you just do it in a bowl. And you just push everything to the side. And a general rule for pasta that I make at home, for every like 100 grams of flour, you add 1 egg. And so that's pretty much it. I just add a pinch of salt, and you grab a little bit of olive oil that you got kicking around, just like a splash, whatever. Maybe a tablespoon or something like that. And that's it, it's good to go. Grab a fork, and you just stand here, and you just kind of, like you're making an omelet or something. You move the bowl slowly, because you don't want to like mix everything together like into a big shaggy mass. You just want to keep it in the center, and slowly, as you're mixing the egg yolks, it just kind of pulls the flour off of the side, so it doesn't just all get incorporated at once. Because I've never done that before, but I assume it would look like shit. It would look terrible. And so I don't know, maybe it takes like 5 minutes or something. You can see it's just like slowly starting to thicken. It's not very liquidy anymore. It's actually starting to fold in on itself a bit. You know, it's not so easy all of a sudden to be mixing through. So you ditch the fork at this point, I think. But this is when you just start doing it by hand. And so you actually just try to keep it all together. Don't let it like kind of go off on its own. You just keep folding, like you turn it 90 degrees and you fold it over itself. Turn it 90 degrees, fold it over itself. Turn it 90 degrees, fold it over itself. Turn it 90 degrees, fold it over itself. You get the picture. You don't have to, you can do whatever you want, but the key is definitely like folding it over, in case you didn't get that already. But this is definitely the part of the job where you kind of start getting the muscles going and all that. It's gonna start getting denser, but this was the first kind of job I got to do. It was actually pretty important because it was an Italian restaurant and they were letting the guy that didn't know anything to make pasta sometimes. So I would just be upstairs and we wouldn't actually make it with a machine. The pasta was always made by hand, essentially just like this, except for you would have like a way bigger well because you'd be making so much more pasta. You'd just be looking out the window and there'd be like crackheads screaming at each other. It was in this like kind of dodgy area of town in Vancouver. And that's all you would hear. You just hear people fighting each other outside the window. That was like the soundtrack. Whenever I think of like making pasta by hand, the soundtrack to it to me is crackheads fighting each other outside. So it looks like I can kind of tell already that's probably not going to take in all of this flour. But you do want to try to do this for as long as you can, because you really do want to get as much of that in there as possible. I always find that a drier dough always winds up a lot nicer with the end product. It doesn't matter if the eggs wind up being smaller, you just kind of keep going until you hit that right point where you're like, okay, this is getting pretty stiff, pretty ridiculous. I'm not gonna be able to get the rest of this in there. But the more important thing is that you got in as much as you could. My production manager stitched me up and bought me medium-sized eggs. It's not my fault, it's always somebody else's fault. We're out of the bowl now, and I just keep working it a little bit more. That looks pretty good at this point. A good way to tell that's just about ready is you can actually, you fold it over and you stick your thumb in it, and it should actually bounce back a little bit, but not all the way. So now we're gonna rest it. If I tried to roll this out right now, it would just break this machine. It would just completely destroy it. So you can either put this in the fridge overnight, and this actually helps the dough just relax, or you can just leave it out at room temp, because we're gonna make this really soon anyway. Put it in like a bowl covered. You can just leave this, but you have to leave it for, I would say, at least 1 hour. Just leaving this in the fridge, it'll last a few days easily. Here's 2 pastas that we have here. This is the one that we just made. This is the one I made yesterday. It's just been resting overnight. I put it in the fridge, and if you just touch them, that stays where it is. This one, the one that we just rolled, it kind of bounces back and it just kind of comes back together like that. So it obviously has not rested, but this guy is all good to go. So I'm gonna pop this guy away, and we're gonna roll out our dough. I would highly suggest buying one of these. It's just a pasta roller. It's something that'll last you your entire life if you just take care of it. You just leave it in the cupboard. Don't let it get wet or anything like that. They're not even that expensive. I would highly suggest going to buy one, because I don't like rolling it out with the old, what's that called again? The mattarello. I don't want to cut it up with the mattarello, or roll it out with the mattarello. We're gonna cut it up into 4 pieces. I'm gonna bring this bad boy over here. You're gonna put it onto the widest setting. And so you're gonna take this guy first, and just with your fingers, just make it like as flat as you can. You don't have to do it like this, make it flat. It's just like, this kind of gives it something to grab onto. So just like that, so that'll easily feed through. A little bit of flour. Boom. You don't want tons, you just want enough. Like, you can even shake it off for the most part. You just want like that little bit of dusting on it. You can even stretch it out a tiny bit. I should have this attached to the bench, but I forgot the old bench attacher. And I never use it anyway, because I'm always way too lazy to figure that out. So, put it to the next step so it's a little bit thinner. Pop it right through. Again, right? So it kind of looks kind of funny like that. But then you put it back to the widest setting, and you'll fold it in on itself. And this is how you get some really nice, flat, or wide sheets of pasta. And you just do it with your fingers again, just kind of getting it going. And if there's still like a nice little dusting of flour on there, you probably don't need to add any more. But now, instead of putting it back through this way, you put it back this way, and that way you get the perfect sheet of pasta that comes out. And it makes it just a bit easier for cutting, makes it look pretty nice. If you feel like it's starting to stick a little bit, just add a little bit more flour to it. If it just feels like a little bit tacky, you just add a little bit more flour every time. Always when you're like handling it, I always kind of handle it on the back of my hands. Just kind of keeps you from messing it up. And so this bit's kind of up to you. Kind of depends like what you want your pasta to be like. I actually kind of like mine a little bit thicker. So sometimes I won't actually take it to the last setting. Sometimes I'll put it through twice on wherever I'm gonna finish. And that just kind of makes sure that it stays at that thickness. Because when you roll it out, sometimes it actually comes back in together a bit. You can almost start to see your board kind of through the pasta. You can kind of see, the little grooves of the wood underneath it, like a little window. And that's usually when I can tell I'm like, okay, this is how I like it anyway. And that guy will be good to go. So I'll finish rolling all of these out first. But just to store them, a little bit of flour, and then I put it over itself. A little bit of flour, and then I put it over itself. It'll do it again. And you just do it like that. Don't press it down or anything. Just leave it, let it chill out. And then you just do it again with all these. All right. This is the part where it's kind of fun. I've got them all kind of where I want them to be. Made a giant mess, that's okay, whatever. So I have a cool little pasta roller, but you can buy these pretty much at any store ever, anywhere, doesn't matter. Chances are they have like a little rigid little cutter. This one's got double-ended, which is kind of cool, so it's just a straight one on one side. but it looks a lot bougier when you got the little, you know, the little zigzag anyway. It's pretty straightforward. You don't want your noodles like too long or your pasta too long. So I would say like, you know, something like that. Like just look at your hips. Let's just go with my hips. Boom. That's it. That's perfect. That's really good actually. But that's like some kind of universal rule. Pasta, the length of your hips. Remember that. They should teach that in cooking school. That's how I'm gonna cut it. And you can double them up if you want. So you just sit one on top of each other. And this, like I said, I don't know, this doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to like nail it. You can even do like, I like going, obviously, the noodles, boom, like that. I like them a bit thicker. These are gonna be like pappardelle. So it's super easy. You don't have to get them really thin. They're actually better when they're thicker. I think they look really nice. And so I got this handy little pasta hanger here. But you just hang them over top. But you can use that, you can use like the top of a door or something like that. You don't need to have this pasta hanger or anything like that whatsoever. Sometimes I used to put them, before I actually have one of these, I just put them on the backs of chairs and I don't know, whatever. If you're hanging around your house, nobody really cares. And pretty much, once you have these guys hanging on here, you can just leave them and that's it. These will last like weeks when they're actually, as long as they're not in some like weird cramped spot and they're just out hanging or in like a nice aerated space, they'll just harden and you can just use them whenever you want and they only take like 2 or 3 minutes to actually cook. Simple pasta like this always tastes best with a really, really easy sauce. Alrighty, cool. Super easy sauce, super easy pasta. Don't overcomplicate it. I just got some Italian sausages just from the butcher, so there's like a bit of fennel and all that in there. Fennel, black pepper, a little bit of chili, just super classic. You're gonna start this with just a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the pot. Then you just take your sausages and just like little sausage balls. Because you really wanna like build that flavor from the very beginning, the base. Just keep popping them in, whatever. And we're just gonna like get like a little bit of color, honestly, just on one side. Like I said, I'm super lazy. And so you just let them kind of do their thing there. I'm probably not even gonna use all these sausages, so that's cool. They can hang out there. It's just like the base flavor, everything. So you could 100% just skip this whole step and you could just make it vegetarian, just like that. As usual, just a little bit of garlic. We don't need much of that. You just want to get these bad boys ready. Once again, just over like a medium heat. This is where I need like an apprentice to just peel onions for me, you know? Who wants to be my apprentice? None of you, okay. That's cool. All right, so these guys have been chilling out on here. They're not like, don't have like a hard caramelization on them. I'll probably just leave them a little bit longer. I'm just not gonna touch them. So peppers and tomatoes, good friends. And it's up to you which color capsicum, you know, that's like all, this is where you add your own personal flair to the recipe. Are you a red capsicum kind of person? Are you a yellow capsicum kind of person? I am a yellow capsicum kind of person. This is all just gonna get cooked down into like a bit of a sloppy sauce anyway. So a little bit, you can see on one side, it's a nice color. Sausages lend so much flavor to the whole dish. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of the garlic. Get the garlic in there just till it starts to get a little bit of color on it. You just really want those aromatics to come through. And then you just add in these bad boys. Pop the old capsicums in. So that's just one capsicum I threw in there. I'm gonna be sassy, I'm gonna turn up the heat. And then, I don't know, man, maybe there's like 300 grams of tomatoes, maybe like a couple cups worth, something like that. You can cut them up, but a sauce like this, it doesn't really matter. They're all just gonna cook out, and it's just mostly gonna help kind of thicken the sauce. You can just break it up. It's kind of fun this way. Just crush it all in there. When they're all halved, it always winds up looking a bit better anyway, and you just kind of let all the juice come through. You want to break these up as much as you can. A little bit of wine, maybe like a quarter cup, whatever you're feeling like. Whatever's hanging around. Don't use nice wine for it. And so now this is just all going to cook out. It'll probably take like 5-10 minutes or something like that. Maybe actually, I'm going to add some butter. Red butter. So maybe like, I don't know, like a tablespoon or two. Something like that. Pop them in. Little bit of salt. Black pepper. Cool. Now let's leave it alone and let it do its thing. For this, I'm just gonna use Grana Padano. A block, I don't know, maybe kind of like this. So, Grana Padano is a kind of Parmesan. There's two kinds. Grana Padano has been aged for, I believe it's like year to year and a half. Parmigiano Reggiano is aged for 2 years. So I would suggest just getting Grana Padano. It's usually a bit cheaper, and for something that you're putting in a pasta sauce, it's like, and on top, it's like, who cares? Reggiano is kind of like a much nicer, like sharper cheese, and it's something you would kind of use more on like a cheese board or something to finish, like say if you're, I don't know, you're making like carpaccio or something like that. You can use canned tomatoes, but I love using fresh tomatoes whenever I can. I think it makes just such a difference, and it makes everything so much lighter. Basil, I just kind of throw that in at the end. Parsley, I like parsley like in a sauce like this, not too much. I add the stems. I think most of the flavor honestly is in the stems. I like some of the whole leaves, I like some of the chopped up leaves. Maybe stick a little bit on the bottom. So, like I said, grab a little bit of your pasta water, pop it in there, it just buys you some time, lets these to continue to break down. You can really see see I can pull the spoon across. You can still see the bottom of the pan a little. So that means it's getting pretty close to where we want it. So, fresh pasta cooks so much faster than dry pasta. You know, dry will be like 6, 8, 10, sometimes 20 minutes, certain ones that you get. But these guys, these will cook in like, I don't know, maybe a minute or two. The reason I add the semolina in the first place is because it really does, when this is cooking, it gives it a really nice bite. And it doesn't take a lot. That's why I put the semolina in. I think it's almost key for all of this. Putting this all over my arm. It's gonna look like a pasta monster. Here we go. Boom, all of it in. Give it a little shake, just to let everything move around a little bit. If you got like tweezers or tongs or something, like any pasta, whenever I first drop it into the water, you just give it a little move about, because if you just throw it in there and you just let it sink to the bottom, then sometimes it can all kind of stick together and it turns into this gross mass. You can tell already, just give it a little move around. The pasta's it's almost done cooking. You can see it's all kind of gone separate now. Check my sauce, yeah. So it's starting to get a little low, but that's nice because I'm gonna take this out. All that extra water that's attached to the pasta, all the extra starches are just gonna go right in there. And al dente isn't really a thing with fresh pasta. You don't need to worry about it. But like I said, the semolina does give it this kind of bite, and it gives it this kind of a body. So you never wanna like really fully finish the pasta. I'm just going across like a cowboy. Woo! Yeah. You almost don't want to fully cook the pasta. You want to finish it in the pot with all the sauces and whatnot. All nice move around. And if it's looking like the bottom of the bowl is a little dry, like it looks like, oh, I probably need some more water, just grab some right out of here and just let it go. Because you usually want to, this is usually when you would add more water anyway. If you can, never throw out your pasta water. Always keep a little bit, like sometimes when I'm at home and I don't have anything like this and you're pouring it right down the sink, you just take a cup of it out, like just like a measuring cup or something, and just keep it to the side. You might not even need it, but you just don't throw it all the way at once. There we go. You can kind of see along the bottom, you can see the sauce coming back in and all that. So it holds that little line across, holds it, then it slowly kind of comes back in. You just got to watch for it real quick. There you go. Turn the heat off. Cheese goes in with no heat. You can't put it back on the heat. You just want to let it melt out real nice. There we go. The cheese almost like it like takes in that last bit of water and just turns into a nice melty sauce. Some of this, some of the basil, just tear it up, whatever. A little bit of your parsley, a little bit more basil. Just the greens. I love like really easy pastas like this. You don't want them like swimming in sauce. You just want to create that really simple sauce. That's like all you need. Oh, there's one last thing, which I like to add, is lemon juice. I almost forgot about that. I'm glad I brought that lemon out. Let's plate this bad boy up. That was good. Looks so yummy. Sausages on top. I really do kill it. I really do think I'm screwing it up a lot of the time whenever I'm doing this. Bit of cheese. Wow, that looks so good. And once you got that bad boy on, as usual, a little bit of finishing oil. Need that. Black pepper, a little bit of basil. There we go. So that's fresh pasta with sausage and pepper sauce. Onions, garlic, basil, Parmesan. What else is in there? Tomatoes. We got it all. It's all in there. Fresh pasta with sausage and pepper sauce. Fresh pasta's key though. Keep it simple. That looks really good. I crushed it. Rob signing off.